I know that millions of students, including those from my channel, will be tempted to use ChatGPT to write or improve their statement of purpose or personal statement. And I'm here to say that yes, it can be incredibly useful for improving those things, but you've got to use it carefully and you can't use it overly lazily. Even if you want to be super lazy, it doesn't quite work like that. And I'm going to show you how. By the way, there'll be a link in the description if you want to try ChatGPT yourself and if you haven't seen what it can do. It's really amazing and it's going to change education, university forever. Now here I have a statement of purpose sent to me by a student on the channel who was happy for me to discuss it on the channel. And I'm going to imagine being a lazy student. Let's imagine, this is not you, of course, not you, but imagine a lazy student out there who just says, rewrite the following with better English, and then copy paste the entire essay. Why doesn't that work? Well, notice what happens. Let's read a quick sample of the original essay. Through first-hand exposure garnered in my formative career thus far, I have realized that my interests lie in business development. Therefore, I want to be part of the business development vertical of large multinationals, either big tech firms or niche startups, etc., etc. Now, yes, there are flaws in the English there. I mean, this is pretty well written, I've got to be honest, but there are significant flaws and grammatical flaws, and I can point those out, and ChatGPT is going to point those out. However, if we just lazily tell ChatGPT to rewrite it, what happens is that all the personality gets stripped away, all the uniqueness goes away, and you get an answer, a personal statement that isn't personal at all. It's very generic, actually quite boring to read. It says, I have always been interested in business development, and I have had the opportunity to gain first-hand experience in this field throughout my career thus far. What an incredibly generic and boring opening sentence. Now you might be thinking, I could have typed in, rewrite in the style of a Pulitzer Prize winner, or rewrite with advanced vocabulary. I've tried all of that. It sticks to relatively generic answers that don't really have much uniqueness. I know that they would pass a plagiarism checker. I'm not talking about that. Definitely this personal statement doesn't exist anywhere else. The problem is it's just boring and generic. And to be honest, as someone who has read thousands maybe of these kind of personal statements, it comes across quite clearly that there's no personality. I would actually suspect quite deeply that this person has used software like this. Now, I'm sure 6 months down the line, it might get even better and it's indistinguishable, but at the moment, because it wants to stick to correct English, the answers it generates are devoid of personality, quite generic. I mean, you can take any sentence here. Let's look at the next one. My interest in business was sparked by watching my father build his own business from scratch. Okay, that's great, but there's no real spark in that sentence, aside from the word spark. It's a bland sentence. No inspiration, no narrative arc, no anecdote, nothing like using the last $200 in his account and how he taught me late at night the tips and tricks of the trade. Only you can inject those kind of anecdotes. ChatGPT can't make them up for you. Unless you want to lie, of course. Now, I know what you're thinking. How about we just directly criticize and have a conversation with ChatGPT and say what needs to be done? When I tried that, I said, keep it closer to the original. You remove too much of the content. There are things mentioned in the original essay that are dropped from this essay. Literal meanings that are dropped. And that's another reason you have to be careful. It's not just that the language becomes generic. The meanings are dropped. Certain bits of the content, chat just decides, you know what, don't need to say that, let's drop it. But you might have wanted to say that. Now don't worry, in a couple minutes I am going to show you how you can use it to your benefit and that can actually improve your essay. But for now I just wanted to point out what happens if we lazily just rely on giving it a single instruction. One last point to mention, I actually asked it directly after it tried again to give me something closer, still super generic, still content was lost. I said, look, this is too bland. Make the language more idiosyncratic with more personality. I want some personality. I want interesting vocabulary like the word idiosyncratic. Don't give me this generic stuff. Sure, it's correct English, but it's dull as dishwater. And then it generated, the first sentence was, I've always had a passion for business development. Now, trust me, as someone who's read thousands of these, this is the word everyone uses. Passion, interest, fascinated. These are the words you really want to avoid if you want to stand out. And that's what personal statements are about. They're about standing out. You don't want to be generic. And that kind of sums it up. Directly after I asked for more idiosyncrasy, more personality, it gave me a sentence with the words, I have always had a passion, which is probably the most generic sentence, the most commonly used sentence in all personal statements. The language model, it knows what a personal statement is, and it regurgitates phrases that are commonly found, but you don't really want that in a personal statement. So with all the criticisms out of the way, you might be thinking, I'm so negative on this technology. I think it's a stunning technology. And so how can we use it properly? Here's how. You say something like, find all the errors and give reasons why they're incorrect. And that second half is really important. If you just say correct all the errors, first of all, it makes mistakes and it will remove things you don't want to remove and teach you some dodgy lessons. However, if you say give reasons to why they're incorrect, first, you're still in the driver's seat. You can still decide if you want to make the changes or not. And second of all, you're going to learn along the way. It's active versus passive. So let's leave that lazy student, who I know none of you are. No one watching this video would ever be tempted to do that. And let's move on to the active student, the student who wants to learn, the student who wants to improve their English at the same time as having a better personal statement. This is how that student would approach it. They would look at each error, and let's look at them together. And I can tell you as an expert tutor, the extent to which I would use these corrections. First, it says, formative career should be formative years or early career. Formative career does not make sense because a career is not formed, it is built over time. That's completely correct. It's an error. I mean, it's cute and quirky, but early on in the personal statement, you don't really want to make an error like that. You'd rather have correct English. So you could just change that particular phrase, formative career, into early career. Next, therefore, semicolon, I want to be part of the business development vertical of large multinationals. You wouldn't use a semicolon like this. Now, it doesn't quite explain that, and it just changes it to therefore I want to be part of, but it gives you a hint as to the fact that the semicolon isn't appropriate here. Also, it kind of cheekily says the phrase vertical of large multinationals does not make sense. And I kind of thought that too. I get what the student was trying to say, but the way it's currently phrased isn't ideal. So you could tweak that individual little phrase, but keeping the thrust, the momentum of the sentence with the therefore, comma. So it's kept your personality, but corrected the grammar. Let's keep looking. Third, emulating the storied career trajectories should be, by the way, I love that. The student's really trying to inject their own personality. That's a very unique phrase. It's a bit overly verbose. It's unique, it's interesting. And they say should be emulating the successful career paths. Storied career trajectories does not make sense because a trajectory is a path or course. Well, a career can take a path. What's wrong with that? So they've actually crushed some of the poeticism from the original personal statement. So in this case, I would go, you know what? I'm going to keep to the original. Keep to what you said. Don't always feel bullied. Now, if you're not sure, you could say elaborate on point 3, for example, and ChatGPT will understand what you mean, but don't feel you always have to agree with it. Sometimes it doesn't do well with metaphors and it will correct them as if they're mistakes when actually they're just metaphors. So I like this one, let's leave it. Next, I gained a strong foundation in subjects such as basic management skills, business strategy, and financial accounting. What's wrong with that? I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but what's actually different in this? Such as basic management skills, business strategy, and financial accounting. An extra comma here, but I believe that's called the Oxford comma, and it's not strictly necessary. And second of all, they say should be separated by commas, not a semicolon. But if you look at the quote, and I look back at the original as well, there was no semicolon. So sometimes, and I think this is called a hallucination, ChatGPT just makes stuff up. So this is another reason to go down this error correction mode rather than rewrite mode. Let's do the next one. I got to know more on mutual funds. Totally agree, this needs to be changed. Should be, I learned more about mutual funds. Get to know more on is not proper English. Perfect. A simple error has been corrected. This is how to use it. I intend to further my understanding of building a business through deepening my academic and professional experience and then go on a journey of iteration and discovery. Should be this and embarking on a journey of iteration and discovery. The phrase go on a journey is not appropriate in this context. Debatable, but okay, fine. I played for the college team, didn't need the capital, and represented in district and state level. Should be I played for the college team and represented my district and state. Now, this is a situation where you have to be the judge. I agree, of course, that college doesn't need to be capitalized, but did this person represent their districts and state, or did they represent their college team in a state competition? You see, if you just relied on ChatGPT, you might actually say something that's a lie, and they could check that and be like, you didn't represent your state. You represented your college in a state competition. You see? So this one, you could change the capitalization, but not change the rest of the sentence, depending, of course, on what is actually true. Let's check a few more. I worked hard to bring out the best of every team member and learn valuable leadership lessons in the process. Should be, I worked hard to bring out the best in every team member and learn valuable leadership lessons in the process. What was different there? The best in, bring out the best in, bring out the best of. Okay, the phrase the best of does not make sense. Let me think about that. I worked hard to bring out the best of. I worked hard to bring out the best in. Yeah, it sounds slightly more professional. That's a marginal one. Just for reference, my background is an English degree and years of tutoring verbal and helping people with personal statements. That doesn't mean I'm always correct, however. So you have to make your own mind up here and compare them. Let's look at the next one. I quickly realized that I needed to supplement my learning through practical experiences. Should be, I quickly realized that I needed to supplement my learning with practical experiences. Oh, with versus through. And then it's really rude. The phrase through practical experiences. I mean, it's marginal. Yes, it probably reads slightly better with practical experiences, but you can learn through something. At this point, a student might feel overly scolded or overly corrected, and they might be learning some of the wrong lessons. So it's not yet perfect. I definitely admit that. Okay, let's skip to the last few. By the way, it ran out of 14, and then I asked it, please continue any more, and it found a few more. Let's look at 15 here. Sports is in the EDHEC's DNA. Should be sports is a part of EDHEC's. The phrase in its DNA does not make sense. Doesn't it? Makes sense to me. DNA is more interesting. It's a metaphor. It's quirky. And that quirkiness has been crushed by just saying it's part of the culture. Next one. It will provide me direction and fulfillment and will play an important role in the professional development. And I agree with this, of course, and it will play an important role in my professional development. You might not have caught that. You might have read this personal statement 5 times and you're so used to reading something you don't even see it anymore. And that is a great demonstration of how ChatGPT can be useful, picking up on mistakes that the human eyes don't always notice just through seeing it so many times. Last one. I am confident that the Master of Management program will provide me the platform to realize my potential and achieve my career aspirations. Couldn't see too much wrong with that. Apparently it should be, I am confident that the Master of Management program will provide me with the platform to realize my potential. Provide me the platform, provide me with the platform. You can say, will provide me the platform. It's shorter. In fact, arguably it's better. English can evolve and brevity is prized nowadays. So just because something might be formally incorrect doesn't make it actually correct in the modern day. I hope this video has showed you that being lazy doesn't work too well with personal statements of purpose, not yet anyway. And to be honest, even in the future, even if it can rewrite it perfectly 6 months, 18 months down the road, what will that do to your actual English skills when you need to speak, when you need to write and there's other people there looking at you? Some people, of course, won't need great English skills and that's fine. But for those who want to get better at English and languages in general, I find correcting your errors and understanding them. I find using ChatGPT to correct your errors and actually understand them along the way is far more productive, far more exciting, far more active. And so I hope this video has helped you prepare your personal statement.